Hi, everyone. Thanks for jumping into time shifting, taking back your life. Why am I intentionally using the term time shifting in such a dramatic manner? Well, I'm honestly hoping to knock you in the head to open a whole new level of awareness about time. The truth is, you have far more power over your time than you ever credit. The concept of time shifting is also intended to challenge some of you who tend to think of time as static, with 1 minute imperceptibly shifting seamlessly into another. There is a far bigger reality out there about time that is often missed, and thus you never have the ability to tap into your birthright to achieve more in less time, and it's through choice, and it's through using tools. We're going to be covering 5 time shifting concepts that I hope you'll take on as habits. And what do I mean by that? Well, the first time shifting leverage point is revealed by starting a simple thing, a Benjamin Franklin like pros and cons decision making model. It's where you have an opportunity to dig in and identify some of your traits. So take just a minute to think through the exercise. Honestly, this is where you'll be opening up the largest chunk of time on your calendar. Dig deep into yourself to answer this question first. What do I always get done timely? List absolutely everything that comes to mind. Then when you finish that, move over to an equally important task and ask yourself, what do I struggle getting done timely? You may even want to hit pause because how you answer these 2 questions is truly at the root of time shifting. So did you pause? And have you completed the exercise? I sure hope you did. Because I remember the aha that hit me smack dab between the eyes when I did this exercise. I completed the assignment and I did it as honestly as I could. The aha that hit me as I assessed my answer was everything under the working section listed tasks I like or feel good about doing or won me external rewards like promotions and salary increases or new customers and clients. And conversely, under not working were the projects I didn't excel at, nor did I enjoy doing. Aha! That means when I'm saying, quote unquote, I don't have enough time to do yada, 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 the reality is I'm choosing every single moment of every day. Everything documented under both working and not working was on my to-do list. I was responsible for getting them completed. My learning: stop functioning as a victim. I don't have time. Do you hear the violin whining in the background? Nancy, and instead of choosing to whine, take responsibility for every moment of every day. This is one example of time shifting and empowering yourself rather than living a disempowered victim work life or personal life, because all this happens in your personal life too. Wow, I never credited how much influence I have over my calendar, nor was I taking advantage of it, to leverage the future of my career or my business or my projects. That's where you're losing a lot of time. I can't tell you how critical realizing the flexibility of your schedule offers for your future success. Why don't you try imagining what you can accomplish and who you can be once you take on this attitude? I get it. We often feel everyone else controls our time, particularly in today's marketplace. And it is true to a certain extent. However, those interested in influencing their slice of the company or creating something for their future can't do so unless they figure out a way to achieve some control over their schedules. Period. Such an attitude is honestly the only way you'll be able to design a future bigger than what you're experiencing today. It's no surprise that you feel overwhelmed and the tension between all that is asked of you, all you know you need to be doing for yourself, and the actual number of hours you have to complete everything. Look at this survey. Let alone focusing on the innovation and change and strategizing and creation demanded of business today, whether you work for a company or you work for yourself. Just look at the research. 70% of you do not have regular time for creativity or strategic thinking. And you wonder why you're not moving up the corporate ladder, when according to IBM studies of CEOs globally, so this is universally thought, one of the top qualities they're looking for from their leaders is innovation. Period. Well, not period. Other skills, but period on this mark. And 50% of you say you do not have time to connect to your company's mission statement. Say what? That's what they're looking for. Companies are looking for to move people up the corporate ladder. They want executives, they want employees to understand how to push the corporate mission forward to improve profitability. And then 48% of those on the study say you do not have the opportunity for learning and growing. One of the ahas that I'm hoping you realize is you take responsibility for your own growth and your career and your life. And if you're not taking time, though of course you're one of the rare breed because you're watching and listening to this video and you're growing yourself, your career future is very much dimmed if you're not constantly growing and developing. So yes, time pressures are a reality, as well as a deadly serious topic to the future of your career. And women honestly face tougher time stressors, as research studies support, because they also have, almost a full-time job at home with their children. But I imagine if you're a woman listening to this, I don't need to tell you about any studies to confirm what you're experiencing every single moment of the day. Now let's look at another time shifting tip. But before we do, take a moment to think about a project you are working on in an area you consider your strength. And it's an area that also you're energized when you're working in. Doesn't 3 hours feel as though 3 minutes has passed? Research from Gallup reveals that when you are working in areas that are your strength, you're almost 8% more productive. Wow, is that getting back a lot of time? How do you identify your strengths? Well, there's an assessment instrument entitled StrengthScope, which reveals your strengths and what energizes you. And I just happen to be certified in this instrument. So if you're interested in learning more, please reach out, talk to me about it. But there are also some down and dirty ways you can get in touch with your strengths. And I'm going to hand them to you and hit you with them in a fast and furious manner. So pay attention, please. Look at the aspects of business where you have the natural aptitude and you find intriguing and fun. Yes, you heard me. You like doing it. You're curious about it. Check your pulse to uncover what excites you. What do you do effortlessly that is often difficult for everyone else around you to do? You have to remember you are unique. Recognize and acknowledge where your special gifts show up. The more you do, the more work you're going to be getting to do because you're enjoying what you're doing. What do people ask you to help them with? That's a great clue. Tell your bosses or your customers that you're interested in identifying what you bring to the table that is valued by them. Their answers will offer you insight into yourself. Ask well-respected peers what he or she sees as your strength or sweet spots. Name what you would be willing to do for free because you love doing it and it energizes you. Of course, you'll never tell your company that. It's our little secret. But successful entrepreneurs already know this and lean into their passions. And if you don't already know yours, this is an important question to find out and discover. Because as I read biographies of those who have accomplished big things in the world, they have fun doing it and never went into it to make big bucks. Pay was secondary, sometimes really low on their priorities, and often they ended up making a lot of money for work they love doing. You hear that? So honestly, don't stop here just with these few questions. Continue exploring. You may discover a strength you never knew you had, and that's called growth. Let's explore 3 additional tools which will offer you leverage opportunities to make a difference in how you use your time. Aha! The Pareto principle. I use the Pareto principle every day, and I highly recommend it. The reality is, most everyone at some point in their career believes every project, or almost every project, has equal value, and this is the kiss of death for those of you interested in growing your career. The truth of the matter is that many of you are spending a lot of time working on activities that produce very little results. And honestly, if you check into your organization, the organization doesn't see them as high value work, which means it's hard to see you getting promoted if all you're doing is low value work. You know, the truth of the matter is that if you believe in the Pareto principle, most everyone spends this 80% of their time working in areas that only produce 20% of their work results. Do you hear that? 80% of the time you spend produces 20% of your results. So if you simply shift your focus to lean into the work that produces 80% of your results and touch that work as often and as frequently and as soon as you can, you will be seen as the future of your company. Or the business you create will be booming. Because as long as you're mired in the detailability of your work exclusively, you are not revealing your strategic abilities, which are what companies and entrepreneurials need to demonstrate. And Pareto understood that. Why don't you start looking at every project, both professionally and personally, not simply as a checking each individual to-do item off your list, rather as an opportunity to reveal your strategic thinking and what is vital to you as you check off first the project that will produce the highest value results. Isn't that a different way of looking at your workload? You know, of course, you have to communicate what you're thinking. So you communicate to your boss or your family or your business partners that you're working on Project X because it seems it has a bigger positive hit for the company or your family or the partnership or the business than Project A. Are you, boss, partner, family, in agreement with this priority? In a business setting, this is recognizing hierarchical authority while simultaneously demonstrating strategic leadership thinking. In a family or an entrepreneurial business, it's called healthy collaboration. In your personal setting, it is keeping open channels of communication with everyone around you. Get it? Next is Stephen Covey's 4-quadrant. You know, this model, honestly, it's brilliant and it's well tested. And perhaps you've already seen it before, but it's worthy of going over one more time. So if you haven't been introduced to it, let's go over it because This reveals golden, this itself is a golden tool of wisdom. When I'm working with clients, it becomes pretty clear very quickly who is drowning and overloaded and can't get their head above the piles of work on their desk, and those who have learned to prioritize their workload based on what project produces the biggest leverage and utilization of time. So, what's Stephen Covey saying? If you intend to groom your career, the more time you spend in quadrant 2, which may be very counterintuitive to you, because as you'll note, it's clearly marked as not urgent work, but it is important. And I know many of you already are drowning in what is seen as urgent, but actually is not very important. So the urgent could be a boss saying, hear this right now. But the urgent could be the one touch that you put on a report that's going to bring in a new client. Do you see the distinction? But listen what quadrant 2 is all about and what it does for you. It's where you spend time strategizing. This is where you spend time doing the groundwork for your collaborative teams to be successful. Remember the rules of engagement we did and we've talked about in collaboration? This is where, as Stephen Covey calls it, you participate in second creation. First creation always starts in your mind and the mind of others before it ever becomes a tangible reality in today's world. It is this arena where breakthrough ideas are generated. This is where your growth, as well as your company's growth, emerges. And leaders look at this approach very differently than perhaps you do. I remember the president of a global organization who shared his 4-quadrant thinking for managing time on a big screen in the room. He literally went through his quadrants where each box had a name of an actual project or activity recorded in it. Then he frankly discussed each of the items. When he got to quadrant 2, he said, and this is really interesting for you to hear, when he got to quadrant 2, he said, the board of directors has given him this is a key priority for the last 3 years. However, he said, quote unquote, I take a hit every year because I know if I focus as much of my attention on this item as the board wants, the company will lose. He went on to say, I may send one of my assistants down to that country to poke around and plant some seeds, but that's not where our business growth is coming from in the next 5 years. Then he pointed to another project, also in quadrant 2. I'm all over this like a wet blanket because I know this is where the next massive growth for our company is coming from. Do you hear what he said? He said he's not simply tactical, he's strategic when it comes to the utilization of his time. He understands he'll be fired if he spends too much time on the activity that won't make money. You need to be both tactical and strategic, no matter where you are on the organizational chart, and particularly if you're working in a small entrepreneurial organization or business. You need to be both tactical and strategic, which means sometimes you take a hit because it's important to work on one project over another. And then I laughingly say, but honestly, I'm deadly serious, that if you're touching or doing work on anything that could be construed as quadrant 4 work, you're limiting your future. I actually think you're closing the door to your future, but I don't want to exaggerate too much. And if you remember the statistics on strengths from Gallup research, you'll be part of the 47% club where you're always limiting the time spent on what you do best and which brings the biggest buck and the biggest bang to your company. So you're doing yourself harm. Let's move on. Okay. I know as you look at this, you're going, Nancy, 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 where has your mind gone? You're wondering why I'm bringing statistics from someone who works at a Walgreen-like store. But honestly, you should know me by now. This is good, or I wouldn't be bringing it up. Based upon the chart, this clerk measured how long it took to deliver goods and take out the trash and clean up the store floors. Really, honestly, doesn't that look like very menial tasks compared to what all of you do every single solitary hour of every day? Just look at the first column and then look at the second column. Big difference, isn't there? Wouldn't you like to have an extra 2.5 hours every day? And the only thing the clerk did differently was to do the hard task first, followed by enjoyable ones. Wow, that's a magical time shifting concept, if ever I heard one. Can you even grasp how many hours you're losing every day with the far more complex and more difficult tasks you're charged with performing daily as you check one to-do item off your list with little strategic thought? Or even worse, what if you start your day with activities that are easy and you enjoy doing? Wow, what a huge opportunity or damaging opportunity for slippage to occur in your work. Are you willing to take on the hard tasks the moment you walk in the door? Are you willing to give it a 30-day tryout to see the results for yourself? Because that's how long it takes to create a new habit. And that's what I want you to be doing. You know, the reality is all the self-analysis in the world and all the ahas and all the energy you spent going through this time-shifting model does no good if it turns out you permit yourself to be one of the 58% of workers who say there are significant gaps between what they say is important in their life and how they actually live their life. Part of the reason people so rarely keep promises to themselves is that they make rash commitments. Something sounds good and they're on it, but that isn't strategic enough for your career journey or to create a fabulous life for yourself. Before taking on a commitment that you don't complete, which actually leaves you thinking less of yourself and draining your power foundation, ask yourself 2 questions. Dig into who you want to be and who you are and the goals you have. Once you've identified that gap between where you are and where you intend to go, ask yourself this question. What am I absolutely willing to do to achieve my intended career goals? And then ask the next question. Is there anything I'm unwilling to do to achieve my goals? If what you're unwilling to do is integral to who you are and in sync with your integrity, then you have your answer. Now re-examine your list of goals. Do you need to scratch some of those items off your list? Additionally, do you recognize the debilitating loss of self-respect and energy you experience when you make commitments that are not in integrity with you and in integrity with where you're intending to go? But one caveat, before you scratch anything off your list, you also want to make sure that fear isn't getting in the way of your future. You know, false evidence as reality, which is a sure way to hold yourself small and never prepare yourself for the big game of your future. Only you can determine that. You see, you have to bring some urgency to your goals or nothing will occur. And you have to be willing to move through them to become all you were created to be and all your heart has been longing to achieve. So really, take a pulse on yourself. Is this an area where you may be getting in your own way? bet you've discovered some effective time-shifting ideas, and I hope you're taking them on as habits. I look forward to you sharing them with me. Please remember you can always reach out by email or by phone anytime. Much success always.